So these are my contextual comparisons of the styles of Bertolt Brecht, Harold Pinter, and August Wilson. So this is the comparisons of the context. So this is like a vague overview of Brecht's context. After serving in World War One, he was appalled by the effects of war, so he went to Munich. That's kind of what Brecht uses to influence a lot of his texts, is his appall of the war and things like that. So he fled from Germany when the Nazis came into power, because he didn't agree with a lot of the stuff that they were doing, and that influences a lot of his writings as well. His citizenship was taken away from him by the Nazis because of his beliefs against them, because that's the kind of power that they had, and he became a stateless citizen. In general, he's regarded as one of the greatest practitioners in modern theatre. His most acclaimed work is the one that I'll be talking about now, which is Mother Courage and Her Children, which is set in the same year that World War II began in. A lot of his work is like political and anti-war themed, and his aim was to change how theatre was perceived, so he didn't want his audiences to sit back and just watch and enjoy and get lost in the thing. He wanted them to be distant and alienated, which is the VFX, which I'll talk about soon as well, and wanted them to think of the political meaning and things like that behind his works. So these are some of the contextual influences that could have happened. So the context of where the play was set was in the 17th century, and it was the Great War, and it was a 30-year war. And there was 8 million casualties, and there was famine and disease that was caused by the conflict. And then the Catholic and Protestant states formed the Holy Roman Empire. As the 30-year war evolved, it became less about the religion and more about which group would ultimately govern Europe. So it became less about what the original intent behind the war was, and more about who had the power of which place. With Emperor Ferdinand's ascension to the head of state of the Holy Roman Empire in 1619, a religious conflict began to ferment. One of Ferdinand's first action was to force the citizens of the empire to adhere to Roman Catholicism. So even though the religious freedom had been granted as part of the Peace of Augsburg, they still weren't really getting that religious freedom and peace. So what I've got from that is it kind of takes away the freedom of the people in a similar way to what Hitler did. So if you think of the context that Brecht set his play in, the context of his period has influenced his works within his play. It shows the way in which the power and authority can be used to remove basic human rights of people. And these themes and issues are what Brecht is striving to communicate through his plays. People gave in to the power of the Nazis and millions of lives were taken. Brecht wants us to reevaluate and think about our political system and who we actually have in power. Mother Courage will always be politically relevant because we are always looking on ways that we can improve our society and ways in which we can change for the better. Furthermore, this can relate to the way Hitler attempted to kill all of the Jewish people from Germany. Both Ferdinand and Hitler attempted to control the beliefs of the people. This is another message that would have been highly relevant at the time and would allow Brecht to express his opinions of power and their control on religion without directly saying it. This will further allow his audiences to think about the plays and take away a potentially different political view, and that's kind of what he set out to achieve. So by 1942, Hitler vowed, according to the Bullock, to root out and destroy the influence of the Christian churches, describing them as the evil that is gnawing our vitals. In response to the primarily Protestant northern Bohemian states of the Holy Roman Empire sought to break away, further fragmenting an already loosely structured realm. So, under the leadership of under the leadership of Ferdinand, groups were breaking away and the country was becoming a disjointed country. This is similar to how Hitler ruled over Germany. People like Brecht did not enjoy having their freedom taken away, so broke away from Germany. So that could have been a potential reason why Brecht set his play in this period of time, because the two situations are quite similar. So he wants to use this to kind of say his message without directly saying it against the Nazi government. The Bohemian Revolt was something that else happened within this war, and over the decade plus of fighting, the Bohemian nobility formed alliances with the Protestant Union states in what is now Germany. while Ferdinand II sought the support of his Catholic nephew, King Philip of Spain. So the Bohemians formed alliances within the country of Germany. This could be a critical message to Brecht and what he's trying to convey, because while the plays are set in centuries apart, Brecht could be using the idea of alliances and strength being formed in Germany as a way to contrast it to the political state of Germany in when he was writing it. It shows how Hitler is breaking the country apart and breaking down the alliances and the people. So this is some of the context behind The Caretaker. So Harold Pinter was a Nobel Prize-winning English playwright. He was born October the 10th in 1930 in East London, where he later grew up. He studied at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in 1948. However, later he dropped out after 2 terms to become a professional actor. The Caretaker was his second full-length play, and Pinter's plays are extremely original and use the techniques to portray the thought process and personalities, such as the minute-long pauses. So that's one of his techniques that he uses to build up the tension within scenes, and small talk. So it's like a natural conversation, but it's very awkward for audiences to watch. It makes them think about what's happening. His characters use the colloquial language within their speech to depict where they're from. This has been introduced to the phrase, it's been turned into the phrase of Pinteresque. So he's got his own style of speech within his plays. Within Fences, so August Wilson was named Friedrich August Kittel when he was born to his German father and African-American mother in 1945. He didn't have a great relationship with his dad. His father drifted in and out of his family, and he had quite a troubled relationship with him. So his mother raised him, and along with his stepfather as well. This dysfunctional family setup, I was thinking this could have influenced his writing as well. Similar to Brecht's, context has influenced him. His relationship with his father is very evident within the text, such as Troy's relationship with his dad and the way that relationship is formed throughout the play and how dysfunctional it is. August Wilson became one of the greatest American playwrights of all time. He lived in a black neighbourhood and faced racial discrimination every day. So that's the kind of message that he wanted to get through in his text. The key importance of what actually happened and how it can be changed in the future. Black Horizons Theatre Company is one that he founded, so his intentions were all about black rights and that kind of thing. So these are some of the context comparisons between the plays. Mother Courage was set in the 1600s, while the other two were set in the 1950s. However, even though it was set in the 1600s, there was still a war going on at this point. Just like in Caretaker and Fences, it was both just coming out of World War II. So it was all that kind of intense anti-war period of time. So for the Caretaker, it's set in the 1950s, and so is Fences, so it's just after the World War II has happened. And after the war situation, so in Mother Courage, they're going through the war. In Caretaker, they're recovering. And in Fences, America was in a better economical state both before and after the war, meaning a faster recovery. So you could say that Mother Courage and Caretaker were in a similar situation of war at the time because of their state. Both was impoverished and both didn't have a lot of money. There was a lot of economical struggle, whereas America was gaining money from the war. It could be argued that America in this situation is similar to Mother Courage in the play, because America were making profit from the war because they were using their land and their crops to support the troops, and they were using their factories and their missionaries to support weaponry and things like that. So even though it's not as obvious as Mother Courage taking things from the dead soldiers, they're still making profit and money off the war, leaving America in a better financial state after the war, whereas the UK was not having a great time economically. So this is the comparison of styles. So epic theatre was originally designed in order to make the audience think. Brecht said he wants you to hang you their brains with their hats in the cloakroom. So that was his kind of idea, that he wanted you to leave your brain behind and just go into it open-minded. Epic theatre is largely achieved through the V effect, so it's that alienation that I mentioned earlier. So Brecht doesn't want you to engage with the piece. He wants you to be distant and really think about what's going on. Brecht was worried about the conventional play, that it's too easy to sit through, therefore using a theatre as a form of escapism isn't enough to tackle exploitist capitalism. Therefore Brecht wrote plays to force audience to think in critical and uncomfortable thoughts about money, society and ethics. He stated that art is not a mirror with which to reflect reality, but a hammer with which to shatter it. So epic theory is about waking up the audiences to the political issues that are happening just beyond the doors of the actual theatre. Brecht believed in a strange audience is forced to think about what is happening on stage. So these are some things that epic theatre does, and these are the conventional forms of epic theatre. So you've got your stage directions. A narrator could read out stage directions to make the audience pay more attention to what's actually happening. For example, the stage directions are read out at the start of Mother Courage, which explains what happens at the end. And you've got your exaggerated movements, so it's not natural. You've got you downplay emotions, or you've got your over-exaggerated emotions, and that's what epic theatre typically focuses on. And you've got your narration as well. There would be a narration throughout to address the audience and break the fourth wall. So it's the complete opposite to naturalistic. And that's just a quote from Brecht. So the dramatic theatre speaker says, "Yes, I have felt like that too. Just like me, it's only natural. It'll never change. I weep when they weep, I laugh when they laugh." However, the epic theatre audience says, "I'd never have thought it. That's not the way. That's extraordinary, hardly believable. It's got to stop. I laugh when they weep, I weep when they laugh." So epic theatre is not meant to make you feel natural. It's meant to make you feel different and change your views about things. So absurdist theatre. The Caretaker was wrote for a post-war society. It's often argued that the absurdist theatre is a combination of a range of different genres, so it allows playwrights to kind of experiment with the text and things like that. It's to give the audience an effective experience in the absurd theatre. The seating was often traverse and the cast would be close up, so you're getting into people's personal space and making them feel really uncomfortable. Here's some typical conventions of absurdist theatre. So you've got your audience members would leave questioning their existence, humanity and politics of society. There's no resolution of the plot, so you've got a non-linear plot, it just comes back in a circle. Little movements through to ensure the eerie atmosphere, so complete opposite to epic. You've got your large movements in epic, whereas these are very small and controlled. And there's no real start or finish to the plot, and very few political undertones. So you've got your naturalistic theatre as well. So naturalism is a movement in European drama and theatre that developed in the late 19th and 20th century. Stanislavski kind of set it off. It refers to theatre that attempts to create a perfect illusion of reality. So you've got your detailed three-dimensional settings. So for example, in Fences you'd have your actual house, working sinks, and in some productions there was actual trees and things like that. Everyday speech forms, a secular worldview. You've got your exclusive focus on subjects that are contemporary and indigenous. You've got an extension on the social range of characters, and you've got your working class protagonists. Naturalistic theatre is a style of acting that attempts to recreate the impression of reality. So you'd use, when prepping, some of the Stanislavski techniques, such as given circumstances and circles of concentration, to really get into character and to properly understand it. So here's some comparisons of the styles of theatre. So in absurdist, you've got very heavy with stage directions, and the same in naturalistic, which is very different to epic. Also with those two styles, you've got your political themes that run throughout the plays, which is exactly the same as naturalistic as well. In epic, you've got, it tends to be set over a long period of time, which is the same as naturalistic. You can have different time periods, whereas absurdist, you're not really sure of what time you're at or the length of it either. Epic theatre, there are uncomfortable moments throughout the play, which is the same as absurdist, because the whole intention is to make people think and change their minds about political views, whereas naturalistic, you can get immersed and kind of lost in the story. So some themes that are in the text. So there's the theme of family. So in The Caretaker, you've got the two brothers, and it almost seems like Mick is a burden. So it's that struggle between the two brothers that is kind of central to the plot, which is exactly the same that we watch Troy struggle to fulfil his role as a father, because that's the father and son struggle between that. However, at the end of the plays, we do see some form of a resolution. So even though the fence doesn't get built and the window doesn't get fixed, fences depicts the complex dynamics that both tear families apart and hold them together. So it's like they did have that struggle of a relationship, but due to the family has grown, it kind of shows that there was a good that came from it. And just the same as in The Caretaker, the play, the slight smile exchange between the brothers indicates that they fully understand and appreciate each other. And you've got the theme of wealth as well. So Mick has projected ambitions and wants to expand his business. And within Fences, Troy takes advantage of government funding, and all the play, and in Mother Courage, all plays deal with the characters longing to be wealthy. So within Mother Courage, he steals money from the dead soldiers to make profit from the war. So that's where that theme comes into play as well.